what I'm doing now is just something called FFM setup, which essentially is a glitch that lets you have all the moves at the start of the game. So timing won't start for about 2 minutes, but this is kind of the setup that we do. So the idea is I have pretty much all of the moves unlocked on this file, and we can do a glitch to transfer them over to the new file when we start the game. So a pretty crazy start into it. The idea of this glitch that I'm doing is you want to get a game over in one of the Furnace Fun mini games, and for some reason what that does is it stores the moves that you have on your file. Because I guess when you do the mini games, it doesn't want you to have all the moves, so it kind of takes a snapshot of the moves that you have, stores them on your file, and then gives them back to you afterwards. The thing is, if you get a game over with that, it never kind of gives the moves back to you until you start your new file. So there's been a bit of a debate lately, or I guess a trend to go towards no FFM in Banjo-Kazooie, so there's been a lot of interest in that. It's always been a bit of a controversial rule, but we've been using it for years, and that's sort of just the way that it's always been done. Awesome. Alright, so if we're almost ready to start the timer, it will start once I select the new file. I'll get a bit of a countdown.
Sure, that'd be great.
Alright, 3, 2, 1, go. So welcome everyone, this is Banjo-Kazooie Any Percent. The goal of the run is to beat the game just as fast as possible with pretty much no restrictions. The only restriction that we have on it is that we're not allowed to use sandcastle cheat codes because, well, they're cheats. There is a category called sandcastle percent that uses them, but it's only about 2 minutes faster. So I've said to Bottles that I think I'm already good enough, so I don't need him to teach me all the moves. So all we'll need to do in Spiral Mountain is literally just run to the end. If you're familiar with 100% speedruns, you'll notice I'm not grabbing any of the honeycombs, and that's because I don't really need any more health. So we'll be doing this whole run just on the default of 5 health, which is a bit scary at times, but it makes it a bit faster. Now, I did a very subtle trick there called Bottles Skip, and Bottles usually talks to you at the top of that mountain. If you jump over him in a very precise way, then you can avoid talking to him. So a bit about this category. This game, when you want to beat it normally, it takes you 810 out of the 900 notes, and you need 94 out of the 100 jiggies. Now, the notes are for opening note doors throughout the lair, so to actually progress through the game, you need those notes. And the jiggies are for opening levels, and you get the notes from the levels. So you sort of need both to beat the game. So unfortunately, there's no skip for the last note door, which is 810 notes. So we actually will have to get all 810 notes, which would normally be required to beat the game. But we will see a few skips for jiggies. So it turns out we'll only be getting 6 out of the 100 jiggies in this run. I'll explain how we end up skipping so many of the jiggies, but essentially every time that we can get into a level without opening it, that is more jiggies that we can skip. So it turns out that we only open Mumbo's Mountain and Clanker's Cavern, the rest we can sort of work our way around. That'll be one of the 6 jiggies that I'm grabbing here. But yeah, there's a lot of history to this category. When I first started running it a few years ago, we got 33 jiggies, so it came down a lot already from 94, but very recently a few people came together to find some new tech called bit clips, which helps us save a lot more jiggies in the run. So we'll be seeing 2 bit clips in this run to get into Mad Monster Mansion and Click Clock Wood. So that'll be very new since last time I showed it at ASM. I think last time I showed it, I got 31 jiggies in the run, if I remember correctly. So coming up in here is a glitch called Termite Skip. This is exclusive to the 1.0 version of the game. So these slopes are supposed to be slippery, but you have a second of being over the slope before you slip off. So as long as you spend less than a second either on the slope or jumping over the slope, you're all good. So it looks kind of easy, but if you try and do it, it's actually pretty hard because normally you slip off. So that glitch works on the Australian version of the game, and it also works on the original US version of the game, but not the Japanese version or the redone US version. It was pretty funny. They put out a patch to this game and they fixed a couple things, but that termite skip was pretty much the only thing that they fixed. They really didn't want people skipping the termite. So as with the theme in this category, I'm just going to be running around grabbing notes pretty much. That's all this category is. Fun thing is, when you get 100 notes in a level, you get an extra life. And that's actually going to come in really handy because we need a lot of lives in this run. Not to mention, a lot of the glitches, if you fail them, you die. So you lose lives that way. But also, it tends to be quicker to die in this game rather than walking back to the start of the level. Like, just here, for example, I'm walking back to the start of the level and it's kind of slow, but that was pretty close to where I was already. But most of the time, when you finish a level, you're really far away from that entrance point, so it ends up just being much quicker to die and get back to the start. But there's 9 levels in this game, so if we do that 9 times, that means we need 9 extra lives, so it can get a bit tight on extra life routing. Now, normally I'd be opening Treasure Trove Cove here for 2 jiggies, but we don't need to do that now. So I'm just going to go straight ahead towards Treasure Trove Cove. This glitch that I'm about to do, Treasure Trove Cove early, we thought that it was impossible for a long time. Someone did it on emulator and we thought it was emulator only, but it turns out that you can do it on console. Damn. So there's a few different things that can happen here. I'm trying to swim under the water in this area, and it's kind of tight to get under the water there, because if you go too high, you go back in bounds. And if you go too low, you fall to your death. There we go. So that's Treasure Trove Cove early. That's 2 of the 94 jiggies that we saved. So the funny thing about that glitch is when you go under the actual level itself, there's no water under there. So it's pretty scary. What you have to do is swim to the very edge of the water out of bounds, and then you kind of have to fly underneath. What I did was I did a ground pound underneath the entrance to the level. And when you do a ground pound in this game, you gain a little bit of height at the start of the ground pound. So we'll be seeing that throughout the run to get a little bit of height here and there. It's kind of a quirky mechanic of it. It's pretty cool. So I'll be getting a couple jiggies in this level still, because we still need our total of 6 for the run. It is actually possible to do this run with 1 jiggy rather than 6, but it ends up being slower to do that by only a couple of seconds. And it actually makes the run quite a lot harder, because you have to do another bit clip in the run. Oops. Now, when I did the FFM glitch before to get my moves, I got most of the moves, but one of the moves that I didn't get was flying, so I'm going to learn that from Bottles now. And the reason that I'm learning it from Bottles rather than just having it on my FFM file is because when Bottles teaches you the move, he gives you 25 feathers, and that's a nice little stock up. So we actually want to learn the moves from Bottles. But I didn't learn eggs from Bottles in this run, so I actually have, I think I have 0 eggs right now. So if I want to use any eggs throughout the run, I'm going to have to collect them as I go. And the reason we do that is because Bottles teaching you eggs, he normally teaches it to you in the first level, but it's really far away from where you actually are, so it's not worth going all the way out of your way to learn eggs and get the 50 from Bottles. It's easier to just kind of collect the eggs as you go. So I'm going to try and do a Jiggy Jig skip here. And if you grab this Jiggy in flying, you don't get the little 4-second dance. So we'll see a lot of that, well, we'll see that a few times in this run. Grabbing those Jiggy Jigs either in flying or swimming or as a transformation, and it skips that little dance as Banjo, which is really good. You see a lot more of it in 100%, because there's, well, 100 Jiggies in that category, but it is still pretty useful in this category. Now, I did take some full damage there before, coming off the lighthouse. That was intentional, and the reason for that is because I'm setting up for the death warp later on in the level. So throughout the whole level, you're sort of planning the amount of health that you have, because you want it to be really quick to finish the level on low health and die quickly. That makes it very scary, so you often see a difference between high-level runners and people learning the game as to how risky they'll be with the death warps. A lot of the time you'll see runners just going through the levels on 1 health, and it can be very scary. Now that glitch I did there was called a quick dive, so I start right at the bottom of this pool here. When you exit Talon Trot in this game, nothing can interrupt that animation, so if you fall in water, Banjo just sinks like a stone in the water. It's pretty cool. Alright, coming up is Nipper Skip. There's a couple ways to do this. I like the safer strat of jumping on top of him. Normally you're supposed to go through this whole battle with him where he opens his claws, but you can just jump inside his shell and kind of peck at the back of him and beat him. That glitch can be kind of scary, because if you mess it up, you end up dying, which is not good. One other thing about this game is when you die in a level, you lose all of your notes, and it only keeps your best note score that you've got. So if I died and I didn't have all the notes, I would actually have to go back and collect all the notes again. That's one of the many reasons why the estimate for this run I've put so high, because there's so many things that can go wrong in this run and cost things on the order of several minutes. Now this is a pretty dull section here, so if we have any donations, we can go ahead and read those.
Sure, I might just remind people what we're doing here. We're on Speedruns. We do speedrun events to raise money for charity. For ASM 2021, we're raising money for Beyond Blue, a charity promoting good mental health through raising the awareness and reducing the stigma around these issues. If you'd like to donate, the link to do so is donate.ozspeedruns.com or !donate in chat. We have several donation incentives over the course of the marathon. The next ones coming up are Resident Evil 3 Nemesis with the costume selection. You got 3 choices there between Default, Regina, and Classic. All are currently at $0, so if you wanted to change the outcome of that, get your donations in. And for more incentives, you can go to incentives.ozspeedruns.com. And back to you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a really good cause, and it's great to see how many donations we've got so far already. Alright, so this level's Clanker's Cavern. Somebody asked me when I was streaming last night what my least favourite level is, and this is my answer. So, a lot of people had trouble with this as a kid when they were playing this game, because it's got a lot of underwater swimming and it can be quite scary with air management. So there's this big section where you swim underneath Clanker and you have to raise him up by turning through a key. It's just awful. So there's this little fish down there that spits bubbles. He's called Gloop, and you got to get the bubbles. And if you don't get the bubbles, then you die. So that can be quite scary. When speedrunners do this level, we do it very riskily. So we'll be seeing me get quite low on air here. I actually did mess up my movement at the start of the level, so I'm actually a little bit scared here. I might end up dying. But we'll just see how it goes. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to grab before the first bubble, and my plan is, just as Banjo is about to drown, he's going to be grabbing that first bubble of air. Now this is going to be quite scary because I messed up my movement before, which means Gloop's going to be in a different spot, but we'll just see how we go and try and make the best of it. So Gloop should be sitting just there. Alright, I have messed that up, so I'm not going to die, hopefully, but what is going to happen is that I'm going to miss a few cycles on Clanker, which isn't a huge deal, but it will lose us a little bit of time. What I'm going to do here is grab just 2 bubbles from Gloop, just to be extra sure that I won't die. Now, weird thing about this level, Clanker, the shark thingo up the top of the water, he runs on cycles. So there's this bolt that goes up and down in his head, like the blowhole on a whale, and you go into that bolt to enter Clanker. That bolt only goes up every 10 seconds. So if you're familiar with any cycles in speedrunning, for example, like frame rules in Mario Brothers, it's kind of like that. So you can only save or lose time in multiples of 10 seconds. So because I took so long on Bloop there, I probably have lost 20 seconds here, and I have. So the other thing that's on a cycle is this fin. This only comes up every 10 seconds, and you need the fin to come up for you to get onto this platform. It's not a huge deal, like it's not a big amount of time, but it's kind of annoying when you just barely miss a cycle. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's on cycles in this level to do with Clanker, because he raises and lowers in the water on that 10-second cycle. So that's kind of the reason why this level is so frustrating in a speedrun, because you're constantly battling against these cycles. There's not really a lot that you can do to speed it up, so it's kind of uninteresting in that sense, but it's at the same time very stressful, because if you make one tiny mistake, you usually lose about 10 seconds. Yeah, it's always a bit ambiguous in this game what kind of animal Clanker actually is. He's supposed to be a garbage grinder, so he's supposed to be a robot, but he's kind of organic. It's actually quite creepy for a kid's game, honestly. So here's another one of those 10-second cycles. When his back comes down into the water, I can jump up onto it. There we go. And we're completely done with jiggies for the run, so every single jiggy I'm going to be avoiding. And this is another move we'll learn in here is gold feathers. So the thing about this move is I actually wouldn't want to learn it in the run, because Bottles does give me 5 gold feathers, but I don't really need those. So you would think that I would learn it through FFM and then just collect gold feathers as I go, but you need flying to get to the gold feather room, and we don't learn flying on our FFM file. So actually all Banjo runs will learn gold feathers from Bottles like that. I would love to hear in chat what people's favourite level of Banjo-Kazooie was. Oh. Sick. Yeah, Click Clock Wood's a good one. Razizi Peak. Nice, nice. Good choice. You'll be pleased, Aaron. That's our next level. Yeah. Awesome spot, lightning clouds. Yeah, I only got 98 notes in that level and 95 in TTC. So because we need 810 to beat the game, and there's 900 in total in the game, we skip quite a few in a few levels. You get 100 notes in each level, and there's 9 levels, which means that you do have to go into every level to beat the game. But yeah, it's best. There's like certain notes that are very slow that we'll be skipping, especially in the later levels in the run. We'll be skipping a lot of those notes. Yeah, I'm doing RBA. Alright, so coming up is a glitch called Frazizi Peak Early. This glitch has been known about since about 2012, but never really that useful. So I'm gonna fly out of bounds using the Beak Bomb move. But you get the Beak Bomb move from Frazizi Peak. So it wasn't very useful, this glitch, until FFM was found, and now that I have Beak Bomb already, I can use that to get into Frazizi Peak. Kind of like a chicken and egg problem, doing this glitch, but FFM solves that for us. So I'm going to fly forward for a bit, and then right for a bit, and hopefully get it. Sick. Good stuff. So that glitch is very scary, because if you miss it, you have to spawn that fly pad again. And that takes about 45 seconds every time you miss the glitch. Not to mention you start using up your feathers and losing health and stuff every time you fail it. That glitch is notoriously difficult, especially back in about 2015-ish when it became really popular. But now it's in pretty much every single category, and people don't think about it much anymore. Like, people sort of just do it and get over it. But when the glitch first came out, it was super difficult, and people were failing it all the time. In fact, when that glitch came out, the predominant any percent category called no RBA, if you didn't do that glitch, you would lose 5 minutes, and a lot of people didn't do the glitch because they thought that they would waste 5 minutes just trying to do it over and over again. But since that glitch has come out, this run has got so much more difficult that like, it's not really a big deal doing that glitch anymore. We've come a long way since 2015. In fact, in 100%, up until very recently, they used to do another one of those glitches to save just 10 seconds. So one thing that I should mention about this run is, throughout the run, there are some jiggies that if I grab them, I'm going to crash the game. One of those jiggies is the pipe jiggy in this level, so I have to be careful not to grab that accidentally. So what happened was, when I was in Treasure Trove Cove, you may have noticed that I grabbed the jiggy and fell on the crab to die at the end of the level. that saves a lot of time because you don't see Banjo's Jiggy Dance. But the problem is you don't see Banjo's Jiggy Dance. So when he does his Jiggy Dance, the game goes, okay, Banjo's holding this Jiggy in his hand, and then Kazooie's going to eat it, and then the Jiggy's going to go away. So it kind of keeps track of what object the Jiggy is and says, all right, when the dance is finished, that object is going to go away. Now, the dance still hasn't finished from like 15 minutes ago back when I was doing it. So if I grab a Jiggy, and if I grab the Jiggy in such a way that I don't get a dance, like if I'm flying or an animal or something, the game is going to get rid of whatever object that Jiggy was pointing to in TTC. And if that object, like if the level has less objects than that, sorry, that was very tense. That snowman with the snowball. Oh, crap. I need one more health. That snowman with the snowball actually killed me in ASM 2019, so I had to be a bit careful about that. And if he kills me, obviously I don't get the notes, and that's very bad. So luckily he didn't kill me then. Anyway, what I was saying about the Jiggies, if you go to despawn an object and that object doesn't exist, the game crashes. So I got to be really careful not to grab any more Jiggies in this run. Alright, we've got another little glitch coming up here where I'm going to beak barge into Mumbo's range and skip through all of his text boxes. And that clears off all of his text boxes. So when I talk to Mumbo for real the first time, I'm not going to have to go through it. Now, we do have time for one donation if we have any.
No, we don't currently have any, but I am happy to remind people what we're doing here. We're Oz Speedruns, and we do speedrun events to raise money for charity. For ASM 2021, we're raising money for Beyond Blue, charity prompting good mental health through raising the awareness and reducing the stigma around these issues. If you'd like to donate, the link to do so is donate.ozspeedruns.com or ! donate in chat. We've also got some incentives coming up. You can check out those by going to incentives.ozspeedruns.com.
Yeah, it's awesome that we hit 4K. Alright, so coming up is a glitch called MMM Early. This is a pretty new glitch. I'm just going to do it, and then I'm sort of going to explain what happened after I do it. This thing that I'm doing here is not the glitch, it's sort of just to get us ready for the glitch, but this thing is kind of cool. That's not the glitch. That works well. It's going to be a bit of serious time here. Essentially what I'm going to do is try and get through a very tiny hole in the floor. Nice. Oh my goodness. That's MMM. There's an absolutely nuts glitch when you first watch it, and the setup just looks absolutely weird. Like, you're just looking around all the places. So what's happening with that glitch is there is a tiny little hole in the floor. Like, it is incredibly small. For reference, when I'm playing this game and I'm walking around, Banjo is moving 700 units every second. So that's like 700 in-game distance units. That hole is 0.00001 units wide. So it's incredibly tiny. You couldn't even tell if you were over the spot because like it would just look the same as if you weren't over the spot. There's quite a few holes in that ground bit there, and they all sort of fall in this diagonal line along the staircase. So the goal with MMM early is to get yourself in one of those tiny little gaps. It's like floating point precise if you're familiar with computers. So essentially what's happening in the game is the floor is made up of a bunch of triangles, and where two of the floor triangles meet is like an edge between two triangles. And when the game does its calculations to see if you're over the triangles, it does like a rounding error, like rounding in maths, and then it thinks that you're not over either of the two triangles, so it thinks that you're going to fall through the floor, and you do fall through the floor. It's a weird thing with something called barycentric coordinates in maths. It's pretty technical, but essentially what it means is there's just tiny little gaps in the floor, and this applies to most floors in the game. So pretty much any floor in the game, it's made up of a bunch of triangles. You can usually find two triangles where when they meet, there's a bunch of gaps in between them. So I can't overstate how precise and hard that glitch is. I don't mean to toot Banjo-Kazooie's own horn, but it is one of the most precise glitches in speedrunning. Not one of the hardest glitches to do, but one of the most precise. Yeah, so it's pretty hectic. A bit of history about bit clips. A dude called Falcon X Falcon found them originally in Banjo-Tooie. He found them just by accident in Witchy World because his controller was decalibrated and Banjo walked very slowly along one of those seams and fell through. And those bit clips in Witchy World are pretty easy to do, unlike this bit clip here. So Falcon found them originally, and then I sort of went through the process of figuring out what was happening and how they worked. Then a guy called Ringrush found out how to do bit clips in Banjo-Tooie without TAS tools. So, like with human precision, human inputs, he figured out how to do them in Tooie. And bit clips in Tooie are a really big deal because you can do a bit clip to skip the last door to the Grunty fight, and it saves like 70 G's in no DCW, and it cuts down the game by like an hour or two. Then I took them and found bit clips in Kazooie, so I sort of figured out all the things that you could do in Kazooie that were predictable enough that you could do predictable movement and get in predictable spots. And then after I found that, Ringrush came to Kazooie and he found faster setups of the bit clips. So the setup that I used there was a Ringrush setup, because my original setups were much slower than that. Mine took about 1 or 2 more minutes. Yeah, so they're pretty hectic. And we'll see one more to get into Click Clockwood. And when we see the TAS glitch exhibition later on, we'll see a lot of bit clips. But the whole idea with what I was doing there is I was trying to do movements that were predictable. So, for example, when I went into, like, when I walked up to the level, I walked just forward in Talon Trot, and then I hit pause and tried to hit pause on a particular frame. And if you're just holding forward, Banjo does the same thing every time. Oh, quick side note, this Jiggy in here I have to avoid, otherwise I crash the game. Good. Yeah, so I held forward in Talon Trot, and then I paused, and then you use the pause screens to tell exactly where you are in the setup. And then I did something that we call twirly whirlies, which is when you pause and you kind of turn the camera to the left or to the right. Every frame, when you do that, you go up by 3 degrees in its facing angle. So you can tell by what the pause screen looks like, what way Banjo is facing, down to the exact degree, even to the decimal point. And then you sort of just do a bunch of bear punches and beak barges, which always go the same distance, and you get into Mad Monster Mansion. The hard thing about doing bit clips, though, is there's these punch cancel things where you have to bear punch and then jump on the very next frame, and it's often hard to tell whether or not you've successfully done it, because if you press the buttons at the same time, you don't do one, and if you press B and then A 1 frame later, you do one. So it's hard to tell whether or not you've done it successfully. And any tiny little thing that goes wrong, you completely mess up the setup. Now that Jiggy in the little bucket there, I had to not get as well. If I grab that Jiggy, usually what happens is the Mumbo token goes away, but sometimes it crashes the game as well. Alright, what's coming up here is kind of like the bottleneck of the speedrun in terms of the progression through this game. So Grunty's Lair has been pretty easy to get through right now, provided that we have notes. We just open up the note doors and walk on through. But there's this room later on in Grunty's Lair where there's a whole big pool of water, and this switch in this room will raise that water level up. Now, you're climbing up through Grunty's Lair, so you want to raise the water level up enough that you can swim up to the next section of the lair. As of now, even with all of our new fancy big clips, we have no way to skip hitting this switch. So, in every single category, we have to become the pumpkin, we have to go into this room, and we have to hit the switch. And the pumpkin takes 20 Mumbo tokens, not to mention you need to go into Mad Monster Mansion to be the pumpkin. So this is sort of the biggest choke in our run, apart from the 810 note door. So if we could find water level skip, it would save heaps of time. And if we could find 810 note door skip, it would find even more time. In terms of TASing, we do have a way to skip the 810 note door in a TAS, but it's not humanly possible. So in terms of a TAS, the majority of the any percent TAS would be just getting the pumpkin, going over here and raising up the water. Hey HS, thanks for the luck. Probably a good time to mention the different categories for this game. So I'm running any percent at the moment on N64. There's also the Xbox, which is a totally different game, and the Xbox has this weird glitch where you can start the run in Rusty Bucket Bay and kind of go backwards through the lair. It's absolutely nuts. The Xbox is really cool. And then there's 100%, obviously, where you get all the jiggies, notes, and honeycombs. There's also a middle category called any percent no RBA. Which we'll see later on. I'll become the bee and kind of take the bee back through the lair. And we're currently doing a vote to ban big clips in no RBA. So a vote on whether or not they should be banned. So if they are banned, then no RBA is going to be a good beginner-friendly category for people to run. But currently any percent is pretty rough for somebody to pick up. Although you can pick up this game and not do any of the fancy glitches and still get a pretty good time. But if you want to be very competitive, you've got to learn all these really difficult glitches like FB early, TTC early, all the bit clips, and we'll see even more glitches later. Pretty much every level has a glitch to get into it early. Speaking of glitches, this next one coming up is 640 skip. So I do not have 640 notes, but I really want to get to the end of the lair. The reason being, I'll get the bee in the next level, which is actually the last level, and I'll take that bee back through the game and sort of do a bunch of shenanigans with it. So you basically just flip through here, and then you fly on behind the 640 note door, and we don't need 640 notes. So the difficult thing is we have skips for almost every single note door apart from the very last one, the 810 note door. So if we had to skip the 810 note door, this run would be about 20 minutes shorter. Alright, I'm about to do another one of these bit clips. This one is incredibly tense because there's so much that can go wrong. Yeah, because I didn't really explain the first one as much. So I'm going to do a single bear punch here and then a big beat barge off the edge. The reason we don't just walk off is because when I do this, it's predictable this way. Alright, now, this has a whole bunch of different setups, so there's 3 possible frames that I could have hit. It looks like I've hit something called setup A. So I've got a few cue cards here that I follow. So I beat barge onto here, and then I jump up left. Alright. Now sort of just wait a bit, And then I start doing my twirly whirly. So that's my first twirly whirly. I have hit the right frame, which looks good. So I do a single beak barge. Then I change the camera so that it stops moving around so much. And then I want to do a single punch cancel. So no, no, yes. Got it. All right. Now I want to do a twirly to the left. So that one I did not get, so I got to go back and try it again. I did not get that. I overshot it. Undershot it there. Overshot it. Hit it. Good. Now I do 2 punch cancels, so yes, no, yes. Good. Then I want to twirl to the right and hit, overshot it, hit it. Awesome. So I got that. I want to do 1 punch cancel here. Got it. Talon trot to the right. Undershot it. Undershot it again. I think I've got it. Sick. Click like wood alley. So that's just one of the 3 setups that can happen. That's called setup A, so it was the earliest one that I could have hit. And the different setups depend on when you have paused the game. So I hit the earliest one there. I actually really like setup A. It's one of the faster ones, and it's also easier to do. As I said before, the thing that makes those setups really hard is the punch cancels. When I was doing those little hops with Banjo, and I was also making him punch before the hops. So they're incredibly scary. And it's really hard to tell if you've got it, because you sort of have to look at the background, like all the scenery around you. And if the scenery moves a tiny little bit, you know that you've got it. But if it doesn't, then you haven't got it. And it's often really hard to tell whether or not the scenery is moved, especially if the camera is already moving a little bit. It makes it really difficult. So we have all these really intense camera setups just to make sure that we don't mess up anything there. The other thing that can mess up big clips is any lag that you get. So this game normally runs at 30 frames per second, but it can lag. When you lag the game, Banjo speeds up a little bit to compensate. So if you get 1 lag frame, Banjo speeds up by 1.5 times his speed. So he moves like half what he would in a normal frame, because a lag frame it works. So when you get a lag frame, it's really bad because it completely messes up your setup and you have to redo it. Now, things that can cause your lag frames are things like Grunty talking to you in the lair. So when her text box comes up, it usually causes a lag frame. So if Grunty talks to me at any point during that setup, it pretty much just ruins it. So it is very scary. Luckily, it's kind of predictable when she talks to you. She talks to you about every 2 or 3 minutes, so it's easy enough to avoid that happening. But I'm actually really pleased that nothing went wrong with those big clips, because often you will fail one and lose about 2 minutes. Now, these birds in Click Clock Wood actually get bigger every different season you go into. So it's very easy to jump around those in the spring, but in autumn it's basically impossible. Luckily, we don't go past those birds in autumn in any percent, so it's not a big deal. But summer is pretty sketchy. Sometimes I don't jump around them if I'm a bit chicken. So yeah, what I'm doing now is just going through and collecting a whole bunch of extra notes and Mumbo tokens. To become the bee in this level, I'm going to need 25 Mumbo tokens. And to become the pumpkin, like what I did earlier, I needed 20 Mumbo tokens. So this run actually needs 45 tokens, and we don't go into many levels up until this point. So you'll see that I'm going really out of my way for Mumbo tokens. Whereas in 100%, even though we use more Mumbo tokens, we don't go as out of our way for them, because we visit more levels before Click Clock Wood. That's Naughty the Beaver. What I did there was broke his rock, and you're supposed to break it and help him get into his house in autumn. But we won't actually be going into his house. The whole reason I broke that rock was just so that I could get the couple of notes in there and the Mumbo token. So the gimmick of this level is there's like 4 seasons, and it kind of changes every new season that you go into. Most of the notes are in autumn, so if we had it our way, we would just go into autumn basically. But unfortunately, you need to open up the seasons as you go, so we do have to go into spring and summer. We won't go into winter at all though, because winter only has 16 notes and they're all really spread out, so it's not worth it at all. And autumn has these things called snare bears. The only way to get the notes out from them is to use our gold feathers. So gold feathers are pretty required for this run. You can do it without gold feathers, but it's pretty risky, so you don't often want to do that. Alright, now for the worst part of the run, climbing this tree. Climbing the tree through the leaves is about as fast as going left and climbing it, but this way we get 1 more Mumbo token, so it makes it a lot faster. And the leaves here in autumn are pretty small compared to summer, so climbing the tree in autumn is quite tricky. Now, what I said before with these slopes, the 1 second timer still applies to those slopes that I was just on. So normally those slopes you'd slip down, but as long as I'm on them for less than a second, I won't slip down them. So that's kind of how I got around those birds there. And we're about to see a trick called Spring Clip. Even though I'm in autumn, it's still called Spring Clip for some reason. Where I clip through a slope. It's very similar to 640 skip, what I did before, where I fell through that little nook ledge thing there. Pretty much in this game, as long as you're jumping, Banjo will build up speed in the downwards direction. So what I'm going to try and do is hook myself on the slope so that Banjo is still in his jumping state. And then he builds up speed downwards until he hits terminal velocity, and then he falls fast enough to clip through the slope here. So it's a bit tricky, but hopefully I'll get it. Ah. There we go. And the only reason we do that is just because it's a bit quicker than going back to the entrance here. Now you might be wondering how I still keep my notes, because I'm about to collect more notes here. And that's where the difference between something called voiding out and dying comes in. So I did something called voiding out there, which is when I fall out of bounds. And that doesn't get rid of your notes like dying does, because I think that would be pretty cruel if you accidentally fell out of bounds for some reason and then they took away all your notes for that. So the developers were nice in that sense. But if you void out and you have 0 lives, it still gives you a game over, even though it doesn't take away any lives normally. So you got to be very careful when you void out. So this is the first level where I'm really getting less notes than 100. And that's because we haven't really gone into winter here, and a lot of the other notes in the other seasons are pretty slow. But that's alright. I'm about to do a glitch called Reverse Bee Adventure. So I'm going to transform into the bee here, which is a very, very useful transformation because it can fly. Normally you would use the bee for some stuff in spring here, and then kind of take the bee, and like that's all you would do with the bee. But there's a glitch that we can do to get the bee out of Clicklock Wood, which is very, very useful. I'm just going to get a backup life here, just in case, because I can't remember if I've lost one or not. So we're going to go over to this note door here, and then fly out of bounds. So this trick has 3 different ways to do it. Last time, actually, I think I used that last time I ran it at ASM. That's the NTSC version. Like, that's the version you do when you're playing on the US version of the game. The PAL version has another setup, and then the Xbox version has another setup yet again. So it's a pretty varied glitch. But for the longest time, it was only possible to do on the PAL version. So in fact, the Australian version was the best version for speedrunning any percent for a really, really long time. And unfortunately, that contributed a bit to the category being less popular than 100% because it was less accessible for American runners. But luckily now that we can run it on the US version, it's a lot more accessible and we see a lot more people running any percent now as a result. But that's why the no RBA category was formed initially, because that glitch wasn't possible on the US version, and the US version people still wanted a way to run any percent. But now you can just do it on any version. The American version is a little bit better because it runs 30 frames a second rather than 25, which speeds up some cutscenes. So I guess it's time to talk about B movement a bit. You want to be flying as much as possible, and when you fly, if you hold B, you go faster. So you want to be doing that a lot. Now, walking as a bee is very slow, so we avoid walking at all costs, but unfortunately, once you're flying, there's no good way to get down from flying apart from pointing your nose down and slowly flying towards the ground. So, with the movement as the bee, it's all about strategically planning out your flight paths so that you're walking as little as possible, but also so that you fly low enough that you can hit the ground pretty soon. And there's a whole bunch of fancy stuff you can do with like grabbing notes in flight and stuff. It's pretty cool. And this is also another reason why any percent used to be a bit less popular, because learning the B movement's actually pretty difficult, and doing it fast is really hard. But now they use the B in 100%. I routed that into 100% a few years ago. So now every category does RBA, except for no RBA. Now, the very scary thing about the B is there is no way to get any health at all. Because to get health, you would have to kill enemies, and the bee does not have any attacks. So what I've got now, my 3 health, is what I'm stuck on, pretty much. And every time I hit one of those wall chompers, like in that room before, they take 2 health. And I've only got 5 in total. So I can take, if I take 2 hits from the wall chompers, I'm on 1 health, and then it's 1 more hit, and I die. Which makes this level in particular very scary as the bee. But luckily I'm past the worst of it. I highly doubt I will die in this level, but never say never. And as I said before, dying is really bad because you lose all of your notes. Oop. Now this is an example of bad B movement, so I've missed a note there, and you can see how long it took me to fly back down to get it. So any little mistake costs you heaps of time, because if you fly too high, you lose so much time flying back down. With the B in particular, we're going to be seeing a lot less than 100 notes in most levels. That's simply because the B struggles to get into closed rooms. So in Rusty Bucket Bay, there's a few windows that you have to break, and if you break them, you get into rooms that have some notes. The B can't break those windows, so I'm locked out at 85 notes pretty much. It is possible to get 100 if you do some clips into those rooms, but they're slower and not really worth it. Now, the fun thing about taking the bee through the lair is these rooms were not designed to have the bee in them. So often they just didn't bother putting a roof on the rooms, because Banjo can't get up there. but the bee can just fly over and fly out of bounds. So it's really easy to get into levels that you're not supposed to get into as the bee. I'm going to go into 3 levels as the bee, and that'll save me quite a lot of jiggies by doing that. This next one's Gobi's Valley. And getting into this level is just as easy as jumping through the very top. Because Banjo can't get up here, there's just a hole in the top there that the bee can fall through. So this level, Gobi's Valley, is very notorious for being rerouted. It's had so many different routes throughout the history of any percent, and yeah, they just keep getting harder and harder, but also faster and faster. In here is another point where I can crash the game, so I've got to be really careful. I missed that note, that's a bummer. If I grabbed that jiggy on the carver, I would have crashed the game. So sometimes you do it unintentionally, and it's really bad. Now, the note that I missed before was that one. Good. You'll see, especially in this level, just so many little walking sections, and the bee walks very slowly. Now I'm just going to be grabbing notes, so if we have time for any donations, go for it.
Yeah, I might just mention the upcoming incentives that are coming up. So we've got the Resident Evil 3 Nemesis costume selection, which is... You have 3 options there. You've got Default, Regina, and Classic. They're all at $0, so if you wanted to donate towards that, that's the next one that's coming up. And then we have the Resident Evil 2 Remake costume selection also. You have 4 options there, being Standard, 98 model, Neuer, and the Sheriff at $0. Then after that, we got the Mario Golf World Tour Me Name. They're all currently open, so if anyone wants to donate and feeling generous, you can go to donate.allspeedruns.com or !donate in chat. You can also look at those incentives by typing !incentives and going to incentives.allspeedruns.com. Back to you. Cheers.
Cheers. So upcoming is a little clip to get into one of the rooms in this level with 8 notes in it. It's a clip on the stop and swap door. The version of the clip that I'm going to do, you can do on any version of the game, but there was another clip that only worked on the US version, and you had to have this door closed. Now, if you're familiar with stop and swap, it's like this. You collected all these secret eggs in the game, and you were supposed to take them over to Banjo-Tooie, but they couldn't get their programming to work. Well, Nintendo wouldn't let them, so they kind of had to scrap the whole idea. But the codes are still left in the game, and you can open that door that I just clipped through and get the stop and swap egg with a cheat code. But when you open that door, it's open permanently on your cartridge. So for a little while, if you had opened that door on your cartridge, you couldn't do the speedrun. Well, you could do the speedrun, but you'd have to do a different route because you couldn't do that clip. Luckily, since we found the clip on the top bit of that door, you can do it even when the door's open. But yeah, it was still pretty funny when you had to have the door closed to do that clip. Alright, so we're coming into our last level here, which is actually only the 4th level in the game, Bubble Gloop Swamp. Yeah, the programming was pretty cool. You'd like turn off the game and like rip it out really quickly and then put Banjo-Tooie in. The RAM wouldn't have cleared, so yeah. but I don't think Nintendo liked the idea of people turning off the console very quickly, ripping out the cartridge and putting another cartridge in. But Paper Mario uses a similar method to do a speedrun now. Like, it was recently shown at GDQ. You use Ocarina of Time and then do like a stop and swap. Oops. Now, I'm just going to grab this life here as a backup, just in case. It's very overly cautious, but things can go wrong. Oops. Alright, that's wrapping up Bubble Gloop Swamp. If I've done my maths right, I should have exactly 810 notes. If not, that's going to be really, really, really bad. And there we go. So, we're going to do a glitch to get out of here. So normally Mumbo would de-transform you if you just walk out the door, and that's really bad because we need to be the bee to come back through the lair. Because if we were Banjo, it would take us ages to walk up the top. Oh yeah, Jack. So you can become the bee in Click Clock Wood, but usually you can't take it out of Click Clock Wood. But we have a clip to get out of that room where Click Clock Wood is in. Yeah. Greetings, Jacket. So coming up here is Grunty's Furnace Fun. It's like a quiz mini-game thing. Banjo-Kazooie loves their quiz mini-games. So this used to be absolutely terrible in the run because there's these questions about Grunty, like gross facts about her, and the question answers change every time you play through the game. So it's essentially random. So you have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it right, and you can do some things to make your odds better, but essentially you often lost a whole bunch of time to them. Luckily, there's this new glitch called Impulse Skip, and Impulse found it. It lets us skip the majority of this board. Oh dear. So that we don't have to answer any more grunty questions.
Well, since Jacket said that they're a first-time viewer, I might just say what we're doing here. We're Oz Speedruns. We're doing speedrun events to raise money for charity for ASM 2021. We're raising money for Beyond Blue, a charity promoting good mental health through raising the awareness and reducing the stigma around these issues. If you'd like to donate, the link to do so is donate.ozspeedruns.com or !donate in chat. Speaking of donations, we've just had one, $25 from Speed, saying shout out to the 8bitbeast for this awesome showcase of Banjo-Kazooie. Love your friends at Speed Dogs.
Oh, thanks, Speed. That's awesome. So yeah, that glitch there in Impox skip, I got into Talon Trot on a death square. Normally when you get it wrong, it flings you off the board and kills you. But when you're in Talon Trot, it doesn't know what to do, so you sort of just go on. But there's a 20% chance that you get a picture question. If you get that one, it all goes wrong and you fail it, so pretty rough. Alright, that was Dog Skip. Dog Skip is like a frame-perfect trick to get around Door of Grunty. So you clip out of bounds and then you gotta jump. I'm actually really pleased that went so quickly, because it's not an easy trick to do. Last night when I did my run, I spent like 2 minutes doing that. That was good. Dog Skip was found in 2012 by Chronicies, and it was one of the first big breaks in the game. It instantly saves 25 jiggies off the run, because that costs 25 jiggies to open. You'll notice that I'm ground pounding a lot through those. When you ground pound, you get a bit of invincibility straight after you do it. So before, when I was in Click Clock Wood, I ground pounded and fell all the way down. Oh, I think I missed her. Damn. So yeah, ground pounding gives you invincibility. So I actually don't need gold feathers for this fight, which is pretty nice. The intended method for those green balls is you use gold feathers because they home in on you and hit you no matter what. But yeah, we don't need that. Now I'm going to try and do a skip called Jinjo Skip. And it skips like, it overlaps 2 cutscenes that are about to play here. Oh, no. Oh well. So the idea is you get 3 eggs in, and then the cutscene of activating the first statue overlaps with that cutscene that just played there. Now you might see me taking some janky movement patterns here. The reason for that is Grunty's fireballs home in on you, so they like take the direction that you're going and the speed that you're going and project out so that it tries to hit that point. So as soon as she fires my fireball, I want to change the direction that I'm going. Which is why if you just run in circles, her fireballs will never hit you, because the tangent to a circle always points out from the circle. Now we'll have time soon-ish, in about 30 seconds, when I fire the last egg into this statue here. So I gotta fill 4 holes with eggs. And time. Awesome. Thanks, JT.
No worries, good run. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased nothing major went wrong. I assumed something was going to go wrong, but it didn't, so very good. Thanks, everyone. Pretty much at any point, I'm ready to swap over to Glitch Exhibition, so just let me know when you're ready.
Sure, I might just quickly read out this donation, then I think we're ready for that. We've got a $5 donation from Tim _ who says, put this towards the Regina costume for Resident Evil 3, and that actually takes it in the lead for that. So thank you very much for your $5 donation, Tim. And I guess whenever you're ready, should be all good.
Awesome. Now, just open it up, but just let me know if the levels are weird, because it's going to be a different audio mix. How's that for you? Alright, so full disclosure, this I will not be playing this at all, so this is a TAS playback. I have shown this run before at a previous marathon. It's essentially just a TAS put together like a glitch exhibition thing. So this will play on a file that is already made. And basically what a TAS is it's like you make a list of buttons that you want the game to press, and then it plays back those button presses absolutely perfectly with no mistakes. Now, Banjo as a TAS game is really different to Banjo as a speedrun game. The reason for that being, the bit clips that you saw me doing before with like 2-minute setups, with the TAS, you can just walk straight into the spot that you want and do your bit clip. Now, with this TAS demonstration, I got Banjo roughly in the spot that I wanted, and then I used position hacks to do the bit clips. So everything that you're about to see is possible, but I just used that to speed up the process of making it a bit, because when you're TASing it, it takes you maybe 10 or 15 hours to do every bit clip. As we'll see, there's a lot of bit clips, so I didn't really want to spend all that time doing it, especially just for like a show around. So everything is possible, theoretically, that you're about to see. So yeah, this is on a file that's already made, just because I didn't want to waste a bunch of time doing unnecessary things. So the first thing that we're going to see is a bit clip to get past the 50 note door here. You need a lag frame to clip through the floor. That's why I'm pooping eggs. And straight underneath. Now that is fundamentally different to the type of bit clips that I was doing before, because with those I could flutter under the floor and get behind the door, but with the ones that you can do RTA, you can only fall straight down through a floor. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. That there is a quick dive, like a teledive sort of thing, so when two water planes overlapped. And here's under egg aiming, so loads of fun. So Kazooie did it before Tui, that's what we've learned. Now you might remember Treasure Trove Cove early from my run before. We have a much quicker way to do it in a TAS, using bit clips. Who would have guessed? So as we can see, there's just tiny little holes in the ground here in this game, and that lets us do a lot of stuff. So what we're going to see here is a glitch called Skew. So I'm going to activate the leaky cutscene, and I'm going to get Banjo to swim underwater. And what that'll do is it'll preserve Banjo's angle when he's swimming there throughout the cutscene. But when we come back from the cutscene, Banjo's still going to be on that angle, but the water will be emptied. So it's a pretty funny result. And you can do all sorts of shenanigans with it. It's not particularly useful, so you'd never ever see it in a speedrun, but it's pretty fun to do. My favourite is climbing the tree there, I quite like that. One was found by Chronicies, I think, back in the day. You will see there is some use to it, so I'll be able to grab these notes in this chest here, because Banjo is tilted into the chest. So there is a bit of use, but it just takes too long to set up that it's not really worth it. That sand must smell very good. Hey, minimize. So the next thing I'm going to show off is the only object that I know of that is out of bounds in this game. So I'm just going to grab all the eggs out of this lock-up chest here. And I'll show you that I've grabbed all the eggs out of it. So there we go. And then we're going to do yet another big flip to get out of bounds here. So it's just in the corner here. And for some reason, the devs put an egg just sitting here underneath the treasure chest. So I don't know what that's doing there, but that's the only out of bounds object in Banjo. It would be nice if we had some extra notes out of bounds or something, but not just an egg. So it's a nice little quirk. We're going to see another version of Nipper Skip here that is a lot quicker than the one I did in my speedrun. Because in this one, we won't even get the cutscene at all. It turns out gold feathers are very effective against Nipper, but you're not normally supposed to have them in this level, so nobody uses them on it, really. Now, you might remember in my run I said that if I got any jiggies after grabbing this one, something very bad would happen. So I'm going to grab this jiggy and die with it in my hand. What that does is Banjo's holding the jiggy, and then it stores that jiggy, it stores the object in memory that it's going to get rid of when the dance finishes. So Kazooie eats the jiggy, it gets rid of that object. Now, it's still storing that object now, despite the fact that I'm not in a jiggy dance, and that's because dying interrupted the dance. So right now, if I grab a jiggy and I don't get a normal jiggy dance with it, it's going to despawn some object in the room, and that object may not necessarily be the jiggy. So this trick is also pretty useless. You can despawn note doors with it, so there's a skip to get past the 765 note door with it. But apart from that, there's not really a whole lot you can do with it. There is, in the low A button challenge, it comes in useful. We're just going to do another bit clip to get into Bubble Gloop Swamp. There we go. Luckily, there's just ground underneath here, so you can jump straight in. There is a bit clip to get into Bubble Gloop Swamp RTA, but it's a bit different to that one there. Now, this glitch is called the longer forwards backwards long trot. There we go. And that's something called a zip. So when you are falling onto a bit of ground, and Banjo's head would be where the ground is on the next frame, the game sort of freaks out and tries to spit Banjo out because it thinks that he's on the floor. So it spits him out to the nearest edge of the floor triangle, and it just so happens that Bubble Gloop Swamp is made up of really big floor triangles, so it spits Banjo out all the way across the level. It's pretty cool. Alright, so here's the Jiggy despawn glitch payoff. So what I want you to do is watch the croc right at the back, that thing with the eyes and the teeth right at the back there. And there it goes. So yeah, you can despawn pretty much anything in this game, as long as it's an object in the game. So it's pretty fun to play around with, but more often than not, it just crashes the game. Because if it points to an object that's not in the level, you just get a crash. But it can be pretty fun. And when the objects come back, you get some funny animations on them sometimes, so some weird things happen. I think that it's the only thing that I can really see that might lead to something like Ace, because it's touching memory where it shouldn't. But we haven't had any luck getting it to do anything useful yet. Because it just crashes. Alright, so we're done in here. One thing that I thought would be fun to do in the play around is to get all the stop and swap items that we could get through clipping. So we'll be getting the blue egg and the ice key. Those stop and swap items, as I said during the run, were kind of this feature that they took out of the game because Nintendo wouldn't let them put it in. So yeah, we'll be grabbing those eggs, but we won't be using the codes to open those areas. There is a clip past that 260 note door as well in TAS, but we already saw the clip past the 50 and it's basically the same thing. When you do those big clips and you flutter under the ground, you want to get lag frames, so that's the thing that makes it difficult, trying to get a lag frame, because often the game doesn't lag that much. And a quick side note, I'm actually playing this on the Australian version, because the physics work out for bit clips a bit better on that. Gobi's Valley, I don't know what it was, but they didn't do a great job sealing all the corners in this level. So if you look at any bit where the mountains meet the floor, there's huge gaps in there that Banjo can just fall through. So we're going to beak bomb through one of those gaps just there. You can actually kind of see it. There's a gap between... There we go. So now we're out of bounds. And that trick actually isn't too difficult. You can probably do that RTA. And you can also ground pound through those gaps. So here's our lovely stop and swap egg. When you peck with Banjo as well, it kind of extends the hitbox, so you can get a lot of things just by pecking through walls and grabbing objects. Alright, our next stop is Frazizi Peak. I want to grab the ice key in Frazizi Peak. Now, you might remember when I did Frazizi Peak early in the speedrun before, I had to spawn the fly pad and then kind of fly out of bounds and fly underneath. Luckily we have bit clips, so we should be able to get into FP without opening it. Oh, that's cool, TSP, I didn't know that. Nice little bit clip through there. That's theoretically possible to do through normal human play, but it's not really worth it because normal FP early is faster than doing the whole big setup. Now that glitch there, if a snowball hits you into the snowman, you can get a token. Pretty cool. We had that in any percent for a little while because tokens are very valuable. Now you'll notice when I do this big clip to get into Waz's cave, I'm going to flick the camera in a really weird direction. The reason for the weird camera flicks is to cause a lag frame. Which you can use to just get underneath there. In the run, I ground pounded through the floor for all my big clips, and that's to get Banjo to move fast enough to fall through the floor. You have to fall completely through it in one frame, otherwise it doesn't work. Here's another lag frame. Go. Ice key without opening it. But yeah, you need a lag frame to get through the ground if you're only just jumping through the ground. And if we ground pound, we just fall straight out of bounds, so we can't ground pound. Now this next glitch coming up is called a Cauldron Cutscene Overlap. It's a glitch that I found quite a while ago. Essentially, the two cauldrons that are over here are ready to go and ready to make their connection. When you hit a cauldron, it shows you a cutscene showing where the other cauldron is. Now, if you hit two cauldrons at once, those cutscenes overlap and it just warps Banjo straight to the room. And there we go. As a side effect, I think we get no music underwater here. It's really bizarre. Now, that cauldron cutscene overlap is really significant because if we could do it on the last cauldron of the game somehow, then we could actually get 8-10 skip, because it sends you to the default warp point of the room, and in the last room of the game, that default warp point is behind the 8-10 note door. In fact, it's right next to Dingpot. So that cauldron cutscene overlap has a lot of potential as a glitch. Alright, now in the run before, we saw Ninpog skip, which I got into challenge rot on one of the squares, and I still had to do about 5 questions in the quiz. But what we'll see here is something called Full Furnace Fun Skip. This is something that me, Hyper Resonance, and Captain Cole worked on a few years ago. We kind of like found a whole bunch of different bits of it. And essentially there's invisible walls that stop you walking off the board, and you can manipulate those by jumping in the corner of those walls and gain a lot of height. So we're jumping across all the corners of the white squares here to make it across the board, without answering a single Furnace Fun question. I remember when this first came out, Furnace Fun Skip, and yeah, it was pretty significant. We're about to see 8-10 skip, which is the most significant TAS trick like ever for this game. This saves so much time. Absolutely wild. So there are actually two ways to do a 10 skip that I found, one of which I found before big clips existed, but that's a bit faster just using big clips to do it. So that would save like 20 minutes on RTA any percent. I also wanted to show what's behind this door because there's a lot of like early 2000s YouTube videos thinking that that door is very mysterious, so that's what's behind the door, it's nothing. Yeah. So the any percent TAS, if we did it, would actually only be about 15 minutes because we've got so many skips, whereas the run when you do it RTA is like an hour. So it's pretty wild. If we had a 10 skip now for RTA, the run would be about 40 minutes, something like that. Maybe a bit less, maybe low 30s. And the last thing that we have to show off is a grunty fight that is much better than the grunty fight I would have done in my run before. This fight is one of those things that's weirdly a bit faster on PAL, I think because there's less lag. But yeah, just the quirks of playing on PAL. So one bit of tech with Grunty is hitting her on her left side with eggs, and that bonks her to the right so that she gets to her next area faster. I'm going to show off another glitch here where you can... We'll do the first two hits with Beak Bomb, but her last two hits you can actually ground pound her. It's incredibly difficult to do though, so we don't do it RTA. That's a good strategy if you ever run out of feathers. You can try to do that. Probably won't work. We're about to see what the successful Jinjo skip would have looked like. The thing about Jinjo statue cutscene skip is sometimes it can make the fight unwinnable if you do it wrong, so it's a very risky thing to do. Now I'm going to set up here for the last three statues to hit her all at once, and that's going to throw her really off center so that she actually will fall down in the wrong spot. There she goes, just chilling down there. That's always a fun thing that happens in TASs. Now we'll see another glitch here where I ground pound just before the cutscene starts. It's called like Rocket Banjo, you'll see why. And that's because the upwards momentum from the ground pound gets locked when the cutscene starts and it carries through. Whereas normally when you do a ground pound, you would just lose all that and slam down to the ground. I made Banjo run into Grunty, so you're constantly doing that lovely noise there in the background too. Yeah, so that's the glitch exhibition. If you saw that, you would probably know roughly what an 80% TAS would look like. It would be pretty quick. That is not technically an 80% TAS because I was on a file that already had some stuff open, but that's the gist of what it would be like. Just added a lot of extra stuff there. So thanks so much everyone for donating with that. I really love showing off all this Banjo stuff and being able to talk about it technically. If you found anything at all interesting, I really recommend getting involved in the Banjo community. It's got so many great runners, so many tutorials, heaps of great stuff going on all the time. So regardless of what you're into, like RTA, TASing, just like watching stuff being explained, playing through casually, randomizers, hacks, the community is really great for everything, and it keeps growing. It's really good to see. But yeah, that'll be it from me. Thanks so much for having me. Shout outs to everyone in the Banjo community. I think that'll be it.